What's up, everyone, and welcome into episode number 532, where it is my honor and privilege to introduce a special guest joining this episode, and that is Adrian wrestler Cooper Honold. How are you doing, Cooper?
Doing good.
Good. Glad you're doing good. Hope things are going well for you. I know you're kind of in that winter break timeline, but you're still having practice. Hopefully, practices going well, kind of getting ready for obviously the meets in the spring.
Yep. Yep. Having practice every day and, hard practices so far, so it's pretty good.
I was just gonna say, are practices like during break a little bit more difficult than maybe like during the school like year, or is it more of kind of like the same? It's just a little bit different because now you're not in school.
Kind of the same as when we've been in school. Just right now we started off like this week with harder practices just to get us back into the flow of everything. But
Okay.
normally it's been kind of the same practice like schedule as normal.
Okay. No, I just didn't necessarily know. Obviously, you're probably, if I assume, pretty happy to kind of get the quote unquote harder practices out of the way so that like kind of towards the end of the week, I don't want to say they're easy, but they get at least a little bit easier for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, it's just a grind, right? Like,
Yep.
obviously, college athletics is a grind. Wrestling is definitely a grind as well. We'll kind of get into that here shortly about kind of that grind. But just how did you end up joining wrestling? Like, was it like a family background? Was it like something you always thought about doing? Did you start at a young age?
So I started wrestling in seventh grade
Okay.
because I started playing football in seventh grade too. And our middle school football coach was actually the head wrestling coach of the varsity team at my school. So he ended up convincing a lot of kids on our football team to end up joining. So my first year of wrestling, we had 50 kids on our middle school wrestling team.
Wow.
For a school my size, that was a lot of kids. So
Yeah.
like especially like the middle school wrestling room was not very big. So trying to fit 50 kids in a small area like that, it was pretty tough. But that's how I got into it. I actually did find out later I had family background in it.
Okay.
Turns out one of my dad's cousins was actually a state champ at my high school. He was like one of the first ones at my
Oh, that's
school. So
awesome.
that was pretty cool to find out later. And it was interesting because I never really thought about me being a wrestler, playing like really wrestling at all. Because I always played basketball. Like I
Yeah.
played basketball when I was younger and everything. But they got me into this, and I'm really glad I got into it. And it was really fun learning that I could be as good as I am.
Exactly. And why does it always seem like it's like the football coaches that are like the wrestling coaches that really truly try to kind of pitch the sport? I obviously know there's a connection between football and wrestling. You see a lot of like football players wrestle, and obviously it like helps with both sports, but that seems like
Mhm.
it's a pretty common connection. What kind of recruiting pitch did he show you guys of like wanting to join wrestling, especially for you because you played basketball? How was he able to get you away from basketball?
He honestly, we had study hall before practice every day, and we would all sit in his classroom and everything. Everybody be doing work, and he'd always just throw up videos on the board, and he threw on wrestling videos. And a couple of the kids already wrestled like beforehand, and they were already pretty good. So they all like kept trying to convince everybody else to wrestle with them. At first I was just like, I don't know, like I've never really thought about it. And then he personally like kind of talked to me and everything, and he was like, it's actually a pretty fun sport, like blah blah blah. My family friends too, they wrestled and they were all really really good for like our
Okay.
team and everything. So they kind of convinced me into it too. So I ended up getting convinced by our coach and by like family friends and stuff to wrestle, and it completely like changed me from wanting to play basketball to wrestling.
Yeah, and starting in 7th grade for a lot of wrestlers is kinda a little bit late, like, it's not, like, super late, like, it's not like you started in high school, but, like, for a lot of, like, college wrestlers, they've been kinda doing it since they're a little kid. What was it like kind of at the beginning of your wrestling journey, trying to figure out a little bit of what the sport was like? Because obviously starting in 7th grade, there's some guys that have been wrestling for longer than you have, but it's also a pretty new sport for your family as well. I know you mentioned um the basically like the uncle, but like besides that or cousin, um besides that, like no one did wrestling prior to you.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting thing to like have to figure out because especially coming in with about 50 kids and about 45 of them didn't even know how to wrestle beforehand. So it was an interesting journey, like trying to get, especially for our coaches too, especially trying to get
Yeah,
down like just teaching all these kids the same technique. And if one's not getting it, then there's definitely another one not getting it. So it was hard too, especially because, most programs like when I was in high school, like if we had a new kid or like a freshman that was coming out on the team, like you would grab that freshman and you would work with that freshman all the time and like they would be your drill
yeah,
partner every day. It's really hard for them too when there's only like 5 to 10 kids on the team that actually have wrestled before and actually know what they're doing
exactly.
compared. So like they couldn't just be jumping around grabbing everybody, especially like we had kids on the team that were 60 pounds and then we had kids on the team that were 215, 220.
Yeah.
So it's like if the 215, 220 pounder is the only one that's wrestled on the team before, it was really hard. I eventually ended up, just learning everything in like my first year. And then my second year was just kind of like fixing all the stuff that I needed to fix, you
Okay.
know, like fine tune everything. And then so then by the time I was in high school, it was a little rough, especially being a 14-year-old freshman
Yeah.
wrestling because my team would go down to Ohio. Like we'd wrestle in Ohio and we'd wrestle everywhere else. So it was a little rough, but I figured everything out pretty quick. I got the technique down pretty well and it helped a lot too for me and a lot of other kids too.
Yeah, so you basically kind of got like the basics down and then trying to fine tune those things. And eventually you obviously started getting better, started have into wrestle better competition, like specifically in Ohio. I know there's not a ton of teams from Michigan that travels down to Ohio, but there's certain teams that do. And I know that kind of competition, especially at a different state, is obviously a little bit different. I know Michigan wrestling in general is pretty like highly talked about. Maybe not compared to like other like states. I feel like Iowa is kind of up there, Illinois, stuff like that. But I still feel like Michigan overall is a pretty solid wrestling state for the most part. But you talked about kind of learning everything your first year. When did you truly kind of buy into the sport? And when did your family kind of buy into the sport as well? Because I know that they obviously didn't necessarily have the background of the sport. I know they necessarily didn't like know everything right away, and it might not really help the buy-in until kind of a little bit later as they watch you wrestle more and more.
Yeah, so I would say so 8th grade year was like the COVID year.
Yeah.
Everything was crazy. So 8th grade I want to say was for sure probably my like complete buy-in year. Like that was the year
Okay.
I was like, all right, I'm sticking with this. This is what I'm doing. Because we had practices over like FaceTime pretty much. Like we would meet after like our actual classes that we had online, and we would do
Yeah.
it over FaceTime. Like we would do a workout, we would watch videos, like we would do all the stuff over FaceTime. So it was really something, especially when a season starts in November,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, we're wrestling until the middle of April
Oh yeah.
because everything's been getting pushed back so much. And it was just an interesting thing. Especially, I could especially tell then, like, that's probably when my parents were completely bought in.
Okay.
Like, we went, when I was in 7th grade, I wrestled a bunch of, like, tournaments, like, outside of, like, our, like, actual middle school season. Like, there was a bunch of, like, My Way tournaments and stuff, so I would, like, wrestle at those. And, my mom would take me, but she didn't really understand everything so far.
Yeah.
And, my mom was watching me, and she, like, she could tell I was, like, struggling a little bit, especially as a first-year kid. And so obviously my little brother got involved too with wrestling when I did. And he was, I want to say 3rd grade at the time. So
Okay.
he was doing the same tournaments that I was doing at the same time. So we were both wrestling at the same time,
Yeah.
and both learning the exact same stuff at the exact same time. And it was really, really unique, especially like when my parents started realizing that too. So like we were at another tournament and my dad finally started to come to the tournaments too. And, it was just like my first ever win happened, the first turn my dad showed up at, and that's like that they started to like it a lot then,
Okay.
and they were still learning a lot at the time, but they started to learn more. And then that year our high school team went to states, and our coaches were like, hey, we're going to get a middle school dual team together and we're going to wrestle the dual tournaments the day after the team duals.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
So pretty much like that was a really cool experience, especially because my dad took me and my brother down and we went down and I wrestled the next day. But we got to watch like our team in the state finals. And I think that's when my dad really bought in. And
Okay.
my mom definitely bought in the next year for sure. Like she was
Yeah.
completely in. And yeah, that 8th grade year it was something different, but that was definitely my year where I was like, I'm sticking with this. This is what I want to do.
I was just gonna say, if you're doing online workouts by yourself, especially wrestling, which is a little bit more difficult to do online when you don't really have a wrestling partner, it's probably something that you figure out pretty quickly. And if you enjoy or not, obviously it sounds like you enjoyed it. But at the same time, when you got your first win, like that's a little bit of like kind of like a hook. Like you kind of like once you get that first win, once you kind of get past like finally getting to that point, that had to be like one of like the obviously one of the coolest moments, but that has to be like, hey, you know what, that win felt good. Let's get another one. Let's get another one. Let's improve. It's kind of like a hook of a start of really enjoying kind of a part of the journey.
Yeah, especially like that first one, that was really nice. And then there was always this one kid I would see at every tournament. And the first time I wrestled him, he beat me pretty bad.
Yeah.
And every tournament, it just that gap started to close and close and close and close. And I want to say by the end of the year, I think I ended up did getting like beating that kid. So it was a really nice thing because I was like, I can see the improvement. Like it's there. And especially chaining on wins in that and like starting to place it like these little tournaments and stuff, like it was really nice,
Yeah.
especially because like, instead of going to a tournament and going 0-2 and then, being like, man, I really kind of just went to that tournament and got just my ass beat. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it it started to show like how much fun I actually started to have, especially like in that time.
Exactly, and that's all in middle school, obviously, like, and then you
Mhm.
finally get into high school, and high school is a whole different kind of beast in its own thing, because probably in middle school, I don't know how much quote unquote like cutting weight actually happens. Probably
Yeah.
not really necessarily. That's more of kind of like a high school thing. But like just talk a little bit about like high school. I know throughout your journey you had a little bit of some ups, it's a little bit of downs. Just kind of talk about those and just how it's kind of led you to wrestling in college and just how you almost actually didn't wrestle in college.
Yeah. So freshman year, I played football all throughout high school too. And freshman year, in a football game, I got hit and my knee popped out and popped back in. You know, obviously it inflamed. Like I couldn't really do anything. So
Yeah,
I got an MRI, and they literally told me they're like, you tore your ACL. You're done for the year. So I get in that car and I'm like, I didn't really know what to do. And I just told my mom, I was like, I don't care if I can't wrestle or not. I'm still gonna be on that team. I'm still gonna be at those practices every day. Like I'm still gonna be there for all those guys.
yeah,
And I missed the first 2 weeks of conditioning. Obviously, it really sucked. I still did plate workouts and stuff. So like I was sitting there doing upper body workouts the entire time. And they all did their stuff. I went and had surgery on it was like some Monday. I don't remember. I think it was during the conditioning. I went and had
okay,
surgery, and the doctor actually ended up coming out and telling my parents, they're like, "Hey, it was just an ACL sprain. He's just got a really thin ACL. Like he's gonna be perfectly fine.
yeah,
You know, he's got about 3 weeks of recovery, and like that'll be it." So he told me that. I showed up to practice that day, like after the surgery and everything. I was begging my parents. I was like, I need to get out of the house. I need to go see all the guys. Like I
yeah,
need to break the news. So I got to talk to all my coaches and everything about it, and they were all excited. And so I got off those crutches literally 2 days after I had surgery. Like everything was fine. I just had the stitches in, and I was begging. I was like, "Can I get these stitches out any faster?" Like I want to get back on the mat so bad.
yeah,
But I started slowly recovering. Like I would run on the treadmill at practice. Like they would all be doing their stuff. I'd come out and watch. I do an ab workout like with them and everything like that. So when my coaches found out about that, they were like, "Hey, when you get these stitches out, could you be our 103 pounder this year?" And they're like, "What do you weigh?" And I was like 115, 116 right now. And they're like, "All right, yeah, like 100%. Like we would like you as the 103 pounder." So I got all the stitches out, and I just instantly got right back on the mat the next day, and I was ready to go. Obviously, I had no idea how to cut weight. No, I didn't cut weight before that, so I was learning how to cut weight along
yeah.
with, actually like learning high school wrestling compared to middle school wrestling because it's so different.
Yeah.
And so, I I actually, for our alpha, I actually didn't get as low as our coaches wanted me to. And,
Okay.
so I had to wrestle 112 for a little bit during the season instead of 103. And it was really an interesting thing because being a smaller guy at 112 pounds it's different, because I I wasn't really the biggest kid ever. And, so then I got down to 103 eventually, and it was rough. That it was a really rough cut, like getting down there. And, making it for the first time, I was like, man, that sucked. And, we got through the rest of the season. I wrestled that weight the rest of the season. And I want to say my first year, I think I only ended up with like 7 wins.
Oh,
It
wow.
was rough. 7 out of
Yeah.
like 40 matches. It was really rough. Going into sophomore year, I trained over the summer. Wouldn't say a lot, but I trained quite like a little bit, probably like twice every week. And, I came into sophomore year probably about 140 pounds, 135 pounds, something like that.
Okay.
And our coach was like, talking. He was like, oh, like we need a 113 pounder, blah blah. And he like kept talking to me about it. I was like, I don't know, maybe I not really, and the next day of practice, he was like, "Hey, like Cooper said he'll go 113," and I was like, "I did."
You're like,
I
"Where
was
did
like,
that come from?"
"What?" So I ended up cutting down to 113. That one was really really rough, but I still made it through. But it really sucked there too, because especially that year, like we had a good team, but cutting so much, you just not really have that energy.
Yeah.
And we wrestled some really good teams. Like every year, we would wrestle the D2 state champs, we'd wrestle the D1 state champs, we wrestle the D4 state champs. Like we would wrestle all these top teams in the state and like
Yeah.
in the country. Like we would wrestle all these teams, and it was rough. I'm pretty sure I want to say I maybe came out with 8 wins that year too. So it was rough. So going into my junior year, for sure, I was like, I cut down to 120 out from like 135, I think, again. So I got down to 120. So I was in a better spot. And that year I actually told myself, I was like, hey, like if you have a really underperforming season again, I don't know if I want to wrestle my senior year, like, because it's gonna be rough. Like I trained over the summer. We went to Florida and wrestled tournaments there. Like,
Okay.
that was pretty fun. And I was just like, man, like I don't know if I can do this as a senior, like knowing that I might just waste my time.
Yeah.
And so going into that year, I actually ended up shocking a lot of people with, my performances. And I ended up making the regional tournament after qualifying from the district. So I was like really pumped about that. Like I beat kids that beat me like weeks before, and just to make
Okay.
that tournament. And it was really, it like sparked just like my love again for the sport. Like
Yeah.
I was really surprised that I could do that. Like I it gave me a reason to want to keep going. So over the summer that year, like my parents kept telling me, you got to get a job, you got to get a job. And I was like, no, like I'm in on this. Like I'm not missing a practice. I didn't miss a single practice our coach hosted that summer. Like I
Love that.
was there all the time. Like, and like other schools would have practices, and I'd be like, hey guys, let's go. Like I'd get a couple guys with me. We had a state finalist on our team last year, so me and him were always practicing together. Like we're
Okay.
always traveling and everything. So we were going like everywhere. Like we wrestled tournaments together, like, you know, and we were grabbing freshmen too. And we were telling them like, hey, come with us. We're going here. We're going here. Like, we did almost everything we could have to, achieve our goals. So
Exactly.
junior year, I ended up with a lot more wins than I really anticipated. So that was a really cool thing. And then going into senior year, as I said, I was training, training, training. Senior year, I come in and I was like, hey, I'm not cutting this much this year. I'm just gonna go 132. I'll be healthy there, like, and it fits the lineup. Like, there's a lot of freshmen underneath me, like at the lower weights, it'll be fine. I wrestle our first tournament, and the first match came out, and this kid was beating me, and I literally was getting so mad at myself. I was like, I should be beating this kid. Like
Exactly.
I'm down 12-1 at one point, and I'm like, this kid is not better than me. So third period, I ended up pinning the kid. So I was like, that was a relief. And I come off the mat, I literally say to my coach, I go, yeah, no, 132 is not it. I'm too small. So that was a really funny thing. Like I kept asking him, I'm like, hey, when can I make 126? When can I make 126? I can't do this anymore. 132 is not it. I eventually get on to 126 after Christmas break. So it was really nice to do that, especially because I was pretty big compared to all like the 126 pounders. And so I came out, got to wrestle 126, And me and my coaches, like, we're always like before duels, like scheming up some stuff and like figuring everything out. Like, all right, do we want to bump this guy or do we want to bump this guy? And I would always tell them, I'm like, hey, you got two 126 pounders. You know, I go, if you want me to wrestle this kid that's ranked number 2 in the state and just to not give up a pin, I go, I'll do that. Like,
Yeah,
I don't care if it'll affect my record negatively or not. Like it'll be a good quality match for me, especially like, you know, just to see where I'm at, especially against these kids. So a lot of the
exactly.
time I told my coaches, I'm like, hey, I'll bump up. I'll wrestle this kid. Like, I'm not scared of it. I know I'm not going to get pinned against him, like compared to a couple of our other guys. So I was like, you know what? I'll do it. Like,
Yeah,
I'll take on the challenge, you know, because me and our state finalists were the only team captains on our team last year. Like, our coach picked us because he obviously seen something in us that everybody else saw too. So we led the team, and every time we were like, "Hey, if you want me to get this matchup, we'll get this matchup. Like, I'll tell you, like, bump me up, you know." So we did
exactly.
that. We did that quite a bit against teams, especially that had like really good guys, and it especially helped our state finalists too. Like, he would bump up just to wrestle like kids that are ranked at like 150. He would weigh in at 144 and bump up to 150. Like, it was, we did some crazy stuff.
Yeah,
And you know, the week I made 126, our coach like looked at our district and our region, and he was like, "Hey, you might got to go 120." And I was like, "Dude, there's no way." He's like, "Dude, I'm telling you right now, like, there's 7 kids ranked. Like there's 7 kids that are really good at 126. Like, they came down. They just weighed in this week." I was like, "Dude, I don't know." So you know, we talked about it. I ended up going 120 for postseason stuff. So I ended up uh our conference tournament, I ended up making 120, and my first match, I wrestled the kid who eventually took 4th in the state.
okay.
And you know, it was different because I was like, man, I forgot when you actually cut. Like, you get tired fast. Like, your
Yeah.
energy tank is low.
Oh, yeah.
So that day was rough because it was like I could have easily taken like top 3 in our conference, and instead I ended up like losing in the blood rounds, and I like, you know, started questioning myself again. I was like, dude, what if I just don't like perform like how I should in the
Exactly.
districts and postseason? So coming into that week, like, we had our team district that Thursday, and I come in that Monday and I checked weight and I was like 10 pounds over, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a rough one. Like,
Yeah,
this week is going to be really rough. So, you know, I did everything I could. I still made weight for our team district, you know, and, you know, it was unfortunate. The team lost in the district against a really, really good team. And it was tough because, you know, that probably affected my mental health a little bit. But I was like, hey, you know what? I got one practice until my season could be over.
exactly.
So, like, I got to, you know, lock in, get ready. You know, individual district comes. I ended up actually dislocating my shoulder in the first round. So it like really upset me because like I lost to a kid that I really could have beat,
Yeah,
and it put me really into like a gauntlet in the backside because all I had to do was win my first one, and I would have ended up wrestling my teammate in the blood rounds, who was a freshman. So like I was like, if I would have won, I would have been into the region like for the next week, and I ended up winning my second round match, and then I ended up losing the blood rounds because the kid I had figured out that my shoulder was really messed up and just cranked on it the whole time. So it was uh it was an emotional feeling, especially because, you know, I wasn't expecting my season to be done then. Like,
yeah,
I really thought like I could have been a state qualifier. I probably could have been a state placer. Like, you know, it really sucked. And I really sat there and I was like, I was so broken that I didn't actually want to come to college. Like, I was just like, dude, I can't. Like, I physically can't. And but, you know, I just mentally just got myself ready, and I just was like, you know what? Just because I'm done doesn't mean that everybody else on the team is done.
yeah,
So we had two freshmen that qualified for regionals, and that whole week I was with them, and I was with our state finalists. I was with all the guys that made it to the next round. I was like, hey, like, I'm gonna do all in my power to help you guys get to where you need to be to make the state level, make the finals, place at states, you know, like, do what you guys can do. So I really helped out them. You know, I drilled with our state finalists every day. Like, you know, I did everything I could to like give him my best shot to help him. And it really sucked too, especially like looking at I still showed up to the state tournament. I showed up every year, even if
yep.
I didn't go, and I got to see 4 of our teammates actually, because we had one of the girls on our team qualify too.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I got to see all 4 of them like wrestle at the state tournament, and it was really cool because I was like, dude, I've grown up with all these kids, like they've all been working really hard. It just sucked because it was like, man, I could have been there too. I could have been there 2 years in a row, and I just ended up not being there.
Yeah.
But I ended up realizing it later. Like I couldn't be mad because my region went 1, 2, 3, 4 states. So
Pretty
like,
good.
yeah, I was like, what? I was in a really rough spot, no matter what. So
Yeah.
it sucked, and that's kind of where I found like the passion again, where I was like, you know what, it's not just about me. Like it's about a team, and it's about everybody else too.
Yeah.
So just because I can't have something doesn't mean that they can't have something. Like they have goals, and I wanted to help them achieve those goals too. So it was rough, but I'm really glad I ended up being like, yeah, I'm not just gonna bail on, like, college coaches, like on Coach Schindel. Like if I just told them, yeah, I'm not coming, take me out of your recruiting list, like that I would have been bummed if I
Yeah.
actually would have done that. So I'm
Yeah.
really glad I ended up not quitting and just keeping with it. And especially because, my little brother looks up to me too. So like I would have thought of myself as kind of like a failure to him too, you know. And he's always really glad to, every time I call him almost like every week, just to check up on him and see how he's doing.
I
So
love
he's
that.
always really hyped to see that. And he's going through, I mean, his first year of high school wrestling too right now. So he's in a, like, kind of the same boat as I am. Like we're both kind of learning a little bit new at the same time. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you're probably helping him out a little bit, give some advice, like, hey, like I don't want to say this is quote unquote normal, but like cutting a ton of weight, like for a lot of people in high school, is just kind of what typically happens. And there's obviously cutting weight in college, but obviously you start learning a little bit more of like the correct way of doing it. Not saying that every single high schooler that cuts weight doesn't do it correctly, but a lot of the time it's more of like, hey, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to drink anything. And then you talk about kind of like the impact that has on you physically, just being tired, but also mentally as well. Like, I'm sure that was something that was extremely draining. You talked about like your mental health a little bit, like the disappointment from kind of not getting exactly what you wanted, but that's all about like sacrifice that you did throughout the season. Like, you're like, I cut this much weight, I did all this and I still didn't achieve what I wanted to do. That just has to take such a mental toll on your health that you start really questioning, like, why am I even doing this? Why do I like to do this? And you really have to kind of say like you have to be a little bit like, I don't want to say the word crazy because I feel like some people might feel that as like a bad term, but you kind of have to be a little bit crazier, wired a little bit differently to be a wrestler and cutting as much weight as you did and just really wanting to do it and enjoying the process of it.
Yeah, 100%. Like my little brother right now, he's not cutting any weight at all.
You,
He's
you,
like the same build as me right
you're
now.
probably are you jealous of that at all that he's cutting zero
A
weight?
little bit. Uh, he right now is not cutting any weight because I told him, I was like, hey, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Like I
Yeah,
did that willingly. That was a whole me decision. That wasn't like, hey, you're cutting weight. Like no, I totally took that on myself.
yeah,
And I was like, because it was the ways I could enter the lineup the best. I wasn't trying to sit behind anybody and be, on JV or just like, kind of waste my season. Like
yeah,
if I was just gonna do that, I would have been playing a different sport. Like I wouldn't have been wrestling. And that was kind of like my whole thing. Like I almost did it with football. Like I'm like, hey, if I'm not starting, like I'm not gonna play.
yeah,
Like I'm not trying to waste a season. I'm trying to like achieve goals for myself.
exactly.
And 100, like easily, like I told him, I was like, hey, if you really want to cut weight, like I know what it's like. I know I can help you. Like I told him, like he even knew, he was there at all of our high school practices too, because he was one of the better middle school wrestlers. And I'm gonna say this completely, he's definitely better than I was when I was a freshman. Like he is easily better. And he was always there at all my tournaments and everything, and he knew, he could tell, like he saw me in practices like where I was cutting hard, and I would just all of a sudden just break down. Like I would just sit there and just like question everything, and like I'm not gonna lie, I started crying sometimes. Like I would just sit there and like just get really mad, and I was like, dude, just everybody else has all this energy and I don't, like I can't do it.
Yeah,
And that, I think that affected my decisioning on like almost wanting to quit my junior year, because it was always, I'm cutting so much weight, I'm unhappy. Like, I just didn't like feeling that way anymore. I just felt upset all the time and
Yeah,
jealous of everybody else, but I had a really good support system growing up with that. Like, my parents were always doing what they could. Like, they would always tell me like, "Hey, it's going to be okay. Like, you're fine. You're mentally tough enough to do this." And I think that's what made me do it, was like I was just mentally tough enough, and I was like, you know what, I can completely do this. Like, this is a me thing. I'm not giving up on myself. I'm not giving up on my coaches, nothing. Like, I'm gonna
yeah,
do this. I'm gonna make weight. And I was just gonna do it. And some people just don't have that, completely don't have that. And it's really tough, especially like, I'm really glad I have that, and I'm really glad I'm around people that have that mentality, because
exactly.
like, I've talked to some teammates that, like, aren't wrestling in college anymore, and I'm like, "Hey, do you ever miss wrestling?" And they're like, "No, I don't miss it at all." But, like, it's really cool just to see, like, some people, like, they miss it, like, instantly. Like,
Yeah,
they miss wrestling, they miss different stuff. And, it's really interesting to see, like, because sometimes people's brains just work out different. And, I had teammates last year that were like, "I can't cut weight, I can't cut weight." Like, they would just, like, break down. They would kinda do the same thing I would, but then they ended up being like, "No, I'm just not gonna cut the weight anymore." But I also had teammates last year that would be like, "I'm cutting the weight. I'm gonna make that weight. I'm gonna see how I perform, and then I'm gonna depend on where I'm gonna go for the district time to wrestle there." Like, I had a teammate that cut down to 157, and he ended up wrestling 175 at districts and regionals,
wow.
because he was a really big kid and he cut down, and it just drained him. So he was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go back up." And he ended up performing pretty well. And, just some people were like that. Like, some people could do that. I always cut just to be bigger than everybody else, because, I was never really a big kid. I was never really strong or anything. So it was just, and I think that's a good thing I did this year. Was I When I got my alpha, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try and get it down to 141. So I re-alphaed, and I'm able to get it down to 141. But I was like, you know what, I think I'm just gonna stay at 149. I'm gonna try and just gain a bunch of muscle. Like, I'm trying to get stronger and everything, and be healthy and not be tired. Because, especially, like, I still have to do stuff every day. Like, I still have classes I have to attend. I have to, like, because college isn't like high school. It's a lot harder to pass classes. So, I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay up at a healthy weight, and just lift and try and get a lot stronger. So, I've definitely seen the difference in that for me, and I've liked it a lot more than having to cut weight a lot too. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say you probably don't miss the quote unquote cutting like 10, 15 pound type weeks. I'm sure that's something that
yeah,
you
yeah, that
it,
was those were rough.
I was just gonna say you probably try to avoid that maybe as of right now, maybe towards the end of your career, once you start wrestling more, maybe that's something that you end up obviously going back to. But obviously having like a support system that you do and kind of going through like cutting weight, going through a little bit of adversity had to be really key to have that support system there and really have those people that kind of have a similar mindset, have like wanted to have the success that you wanted to have, and it truly probably made you the wrestler you are today. And I'm assuming you wouldn't necessarily be at Adrian if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, I completely agree that I probably wouldn't be where I am without them. Like, my mom and dad, they played a huge part. My I actually ended up convincing, like, my cousins and stuff to wrestle too. So then I had my, aunts, uncles, other cousins, like, supporting me throughout the whole thing too. And it was really nice to have that, especially. And my girlfriend would always be there for me too. So, like, she was there all 4 years, and it was really nice. And, having, like, my siblings, my older brother wasn't really a big sports guy, but he knew what I was going through, and he,
Yeah,
like, could feel. My sister would do the stats for us and everything, and do pictures and everything. So it was really nice, like, her always being there. She would travel with the team and, hang out with everybody. She would actually hang out with, like, the girl on our team, because, she didn't really have the same, like, kind of bond with all of us,
yeah,
all the guys and everything. So it was really nice, like, having her there, because then she could support her, and she'd be there for me. And of course, my little brother would always be there. He would watch me, and he would learn everything, and he kind of molded himself after me, if I'm being so serious. And it was really nice, like, especially having all that. And I was like, you know what, that it gives me, like, even more hope. Like, I could go to college, like, and I'm really glad I'm here. And I know like they're always not at my tournaments, but literally bought Flow Wrestling and sent it to my mom, and I was like, "Hey, like
Oh,
here's
that's
so you can
awesome.
watch everything. Like this is so you guys don't have to travel everywhere." Because our team, we've been to Pennsylvania, Wisconsin already this year. Like we've traveled over 7 hours
Yeah.
like to get to tournaments, and I literally told my parents, I was like, "Hey, I know you guys can't make it, so here's the Flow account. You can watch all my matches as they're going on or afterwards. Just and it's really nice. Like they liked that I did that, and they're really appreciative for it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've never heard. I'm sure there's probably multiple people, multiple wrestlers that do that, but I think that's really cool that you did that for your parents and allows them to continue to support you, continue to watch your stuff. But before I get into Adrian, I do want to ask you a question because we've talked a little bit about your brother now kind of getting into like high school wrestling. Have you guys ever wrestled each other, and has he ever gotten close to beating you? Or
I've
are you never gonna allow that if it ever
I
happens?
have wrestled with him before. Um, Whenever we would do off-season tournaments, I would always like bring him with me, and he'd be like my drill partner, like my warm-up partner and stuff. So I would always warm up with him and everything, and I would like, as he's warming up, I would be like, "Hey, you're doing this wrong," or "Hey, you're doing this wrong." And I've wrestled with him a couple times. I would say I've I have not let him. I've maybe let him get in on a shot just so I didn't feel like I was beating the crap out of him. But I
Okay,
definitely don't let him get close to taking me down though. Like he'll try,
okay,
and I'll just stuff him and you know take him down, and then I'll just cut him again, and I'll be like, all right, let's go. Like
yeah,
you were close that time. Just give him a little bit of hope, and
yeah,
you know it's pretty fun. Like sometimes at our house, we'll get into it a little bit. Like like whenever he'd get mad at me, all of a sudden, like we would just start wrestling, and he would really think he had me, and then I'll get him, and it's really fun. It's really fun, especially having somebody like that, especially around like the
yeah,
same weight, because it's like I know multiple people that have siblings that are younger brother is very very small compared to them,
yeah,
but he's always been. I want to say probably since my junior year of high school, like he's been around the same size, so it's been really nice. And it's really nice too because I learn how he wrestles. So when I get to coach his matches, like I know what I'm looking for from him. And
exactly.
sometimes he pulls something new out sometimes, and it's sometimes really funny. And I'm like, dude, I didn't know that you could do that. And he was like, oh yeah, I've been working on it. So it's really fun. He hates wrestling me though in practice because he knows I'm looking to just kind of beat the crap out of him a little
Oh
bit,
yeah,
but
probably.
he enjoys it. He enjoys me being there though,
Good.
and it's really fun for him, I would hope.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that first time he takes you down will probably be, if it ever does happen, not saying it's ever going to happen, but if it ever does happen, that's probably going to be a memorable moment for him, but also a moment that you probably like, "Oh, no, he's catching me a little
Yeah.
bit."
Yeah, I don't if he ever does that, I don't think I'll ever hear the end of it. I think he would literally
Probably
come
not,
home
no.
and tell my parents and be like, "Hey, I took him down. Like I beat him today." And they would probably be joking with me about it, but he would definitely be like, "Oh, I took you down. I took you down." And then, but it'll
Yeah.
be I'm hoping that day will be not soon, but I'm hoping he eventually gets there for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, he's going to get better. You're going to continue to get better as well. And I want to get into a little bit of Adrian because obviously you end up making the decision to wrestle at Adrian. Just talk about that decision. Why Adrian? Adrian in the MIAA, for anyone that doesn't know, recently has been one of the best team, if not the best team in the MIAA. It's you guys and Olivet. I know that you guys
Yep.
have a pretty young team this year. The goal is to win the MIAA, but just talk about that decision, why you wanted to go to Adrian, then just talk about kind of that transition, like the first like couple of practices, first like week or two. Like, was it truly that much different than anything you've experienced prior to wrestling there?
So on my visit, I came on my visit. I want to say like October of last year. So it was interesting. So I came in like when all the leaves were changing and everything. And Adrian, it's called the Maple City. And I came in, and when I got into like the town, I was like, man, this is like the trees and everything. Like the scenery is just really nice.
Yeah,
So I eventually got on campus, and I met the assistant coach from last year, Coach Neiman, and he started walking me through campus, and I was like, man, like they keep this campus really really nice. Like the grass was cut, like all these flowers were out and everything. I was like, man, this is like really, really nice.
Yeah.
So we're walking through campus and I started getting like my tour and everything, and I was like, man, I really like it here. Cause like the only other like small college I was at was Olivet before, because we went to football camps there.
Yeah.
And I no hate on any other campus, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Olivet. So I was like, coming to Adrian, it was like a completely different like change of scenery, and it was like, wow, like this is really nice. And I had my meeting with Coach Shindell, and they showed me all the facilities and everything. The weight room here was really nice. I liked all the gyms. They showed me the athletic training room, and I spent a lot of time in there, especially because that's my major and everything. But like,
Yeah.
I get to spend a lot of time in there, and I'm like, dude, this is like really nice facilities, like the football field. And they're like, yeah, we're also getting a dome with turf in it, so the dome with turf is really cool.
I love
And
that.
I had that meeting with Shindell, and I was talking to him, and you know, we got done, and I literally said to my mom, I go, "Hey, let's go to the bookstore. Let's pick up a shirt." And she was like, "You sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, we got this coupon. Like, let's go get this shirt." Went and got
Yeah.
the shirt, and I got in the car with my mom, and I said, "I think this is it. Like, I think this is where I'm going." So literally, we got back. I had football practice, and everybody was asking me how it was, and I kind of like just wasn't really answering everybody because I was like, I'm not going to tell everybody like this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
This is pretty much where I want to go. Like this was it. So eventually Shindell sent me that offer completely, and I was like, I literally told him, I was like, can I take the weekend and then I'll text you on Monday. And he was like, yeah, we were a football playoff game. We were beating one of the best teams in the state at that point. And I was like literally on the sideline at the time. And I was like, hey, like I was telling one of my teammates, I was like, hey, I hope we win this game. And then on Monday, I'm sending that text, and I'm 100% committed to Adrian. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So, my parents were like trying to tell me, they're like, "Hey, are you sure? Like, are you sure this is what you want to do? Like, you don't want to go look anywhere else? You don't want to wait for more offers?" And I was like, "No, this is it. This is where I want to go." I met some of the teammates, met some of the boys when I was here. I met our 157 pounder Aiden Smith. I met him.
Yeah.
I met a couple other guys, and then come to find out, I had a cousin on the team too.
Okay.
So, I was like, you know what? Like it's it. Like this is where I'm going. I'm
Yeah.
100% in. Like that's where I'm going. So I ended up going and texting him, and I didn't tell really anybody for a little bit. I want to say it was probably like a month until I actually posted like I'm committed, and like this is where I'm going. And it was a really cool feeling because for a while I was like, hey, I don't think I'll ever be able to wrestle in college. And then getting the offer, getting the text from Shindell when school started, I was like, hey, like I think this is it.
Yeah.
I can for sure go here. And it was a really cool feeling, especially like being the first athlete for my family, like the first one in my family to go to college too. So it was really cool. Um, so like that, it really showed like how much like I wanted to wrestle and everything. Cause I had a couple other kids that had offers from here too. And they like on my team, and they were like, no, I don't want to wrestle. And,
Yeah.
and they could just tell like how badly I wanted to wrestle. So I really am grateful for like the opportunity I had and everything. But, we brought in, I want to say there's about 25 freshmen on the team this year, and
A lot of freshmen.
yeah, and we've kept a lot of them so far, so that's a really good thing.
Good.
But, the team's pretty young, but we got a couple really good talented guys on the team. Like our 125 pounder Adrian Rosas, he's really good. And it's pretty solid through. Like we have a freshman starting at 133 right now, just because a couple injuries and stuff. That could
Yeah.
change soon. You never know. 41, we're pretty solid. 49, we're pretty solid. 57, I mean, Aiden Smith, he's on there. He's ranked number 1 in the country right now. So it's a really cool thing to see
Yeah.
too, especially getting to watch him, because not a lot of teams have that. They don't have a lot of ranked guys nationally and everything. It's really cool to see him wrestle and get to watch him do his stuff.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then we're solid all the way through the top end of the lineup. So it's a really, really cool thing, like just to see like coming onto a team like, that had success, and then, maybe a little bit of a down year last year, and then like just being able to like kind of bounce right back into it. Like, starting out the year nationally ranked, and, it was really cool thing to see, like, especially like not really knowing much beforehand, like at Adrian, like not really knowing, how good of a team they were and everything.
Yeah.
But it was really nice, like being able to come in and, just see that. And
Exactly.
and it was really funny. So the first day we moved in, we have two RAs on our team,
Okay.
and
That's
they
probably
came.
interesting, having
Yeah,
2
well, we have
RAs.
a couple. Actually, I think we have like 3 or 4, but 2 of them are in the freshman dorms.
Okay.
So all the freshmen moved in before everybody else, and they come knocking on my door literally right after I wasn't even finished moving in. Like it was maybe 3 o'clock. I wasn't finished moving in yet. They knocked on my door. They're like, "Hey, you want to go roll?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" So
You're like, "Hell yeah, let's go. Let's go."
yeah, they grabbed a couple other freshmen. We all started just having like a little practice and everything. It was really nice. Like just to come in, like I'm like, dude, these guys have access to this room like whenever they want. They can do it. They can do whatever they want whenever they want. Like, it's pretty fun. Like they'll practice whenever they want and it's really fun.
Yeah.
So, I had a couple practices with them and it was pretty fun. And we actually got to preseason. We started preseason like literally 2 weeks after school started. Like we
Okay.
started lifting, we started doing like conditioning and stuff. And it was all senior led. So like we would just go in, get a lift in, and then we would go and like they come up with like, all right, we got a 4 mile run, or like, we got this track workout. So like we would do like 800 repeats and stuff, and like bunch
Yeah.
of like pretty hard workouts just to get us all in shape. And some days we would go into the room and actually like wrestle and everything, and it was pretty fun. Some days we'd be like, all right, we're just gonna come in, we're gonna go 40 minutes of just whatever you want to do, or like, just some other stuff. And then we got to actual like practices where coach was having practice, and it was a little bit different than like high school because we kind of just came in and it was just kind of drilling and conditioning stuff.
Yeah.
And and then progressively as we got into the season, more and more, it just turned into like I was like, all right, this is like kind of like our high school practices. Like, we started off like, going live right away pretty much, and like, just seeing where everybody's at. And then we would drill a lot, a couple days, and the transition wasn't very different. It was just more or less learning like more positional stuff because
Yeah.
it's a higher level of wrestling. So like learning how to scramble better and just like different finishes and everything. And it was really really nice to like get there and learn all that stuff. And just like rule changes too compared to high school, like danger positions and just like everything else different compared to the high school
Yeah.
rules, especially adjusting to a 7 minute period, 7 minute matches instead of 6 minute matches, because that extra minute it gets a little rough.
A little bit.
So yeah, it was really nice to learn all that compared to everything, and especially the riding time. Riding time's a different story sometimes.
Yeah, and, like, I know you talk about, like, the extra minute, but, like, for anyone that's never wrestled, like, sometimes those 6 minutes, especially in high school and, like, middle school as well, they seem like eternity at that point. Like, you're in, like, the 3rd period, you're, like, a minute 30 left to go, you're completely exhausted, but now let's add another basically 2 minutes onto that, plus higher level, higher pace, different type of wrestling as well. You truly have to obviously be in a good conditioning state to obviously be able to be successful, because if you get tired, like, the other guy is gonna obviously kinda take advantage of that, and obviously in the preseason, kinda like the weeks leading up, kinda doing that conditioning, trying to get better, figuring out these different rules, figuring out these different positions, obviously is kinda like leading you up to that first match, that first tournament. How cool was it for you to step on the mat wearing the Adrian singlet for the first time, representing Adrian when you got the opportunity in your first tournament?
It was really interesting, because I didn't have like the same people I've always had in my corner for the past 6 years. Like,
Yeah,
it was new people, it was new stuff. Like, especially like being at a new area, it's more teams, more fans than what it normally is. And it was really something. Like, I felt really special, like being able to wear like, the Adrian Bulldog singlet, and it was really, really nice. And like my mom, like I sent her my media day pictures, and she was like, "Man, it's so different seeing you in black and gold than blue and white."
yeah,
She's like, "It's a completely different feeling." So it was really nice, like being able to be here and wrestle here in college, and it was something like it was really fun. Like I've just been having so much fun, and like I'm not really like taking everything like pretty negatively. Like when I lose, like I'm just like, hey, I'm doing something a lot of people aren't doing.
yeah,
So it's a really nice like feeling to have. Even if it's tough. Like,
Yeah,
you just gotta take everything with a grain of salt and just keep going. Like, because it's not the end of the world. Like, I'm here for academics, and I'm here to wrestle too. So it's like, it's something new for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's kind of back to like a little bit of like when you're a freshman in high school, a little bit like trying to learn. Like these are learning opportunities for you to get better, kind of get to understand again, kind of like the different level of wrestling. But there's also some pride that comes with it as well. And I know some people might have like a negative connotation to pride. And I think at some point it does get a little bit to that point. But like you have pride for yourself, you have pride for your school. Like you want to represent your school well, and you want to be able to obviously perform well. You end up getting your first win ever, which I want to talk about that here shortly. But I also do want to kind of talk a little bit about media days as well. How fun are those media days? Getting out with your brothers, getting out with basically being able to just obviously take pictures. Still, probably, if I had to guess, probably the first time you wore the Adrian Bulldog singlet as well. So that had to be a kind of like a surreal moment as well.
Yeah, that media day was pretty fun. They kind of just told us what time we had to be there and everything, and they gave us the singlets the day before and everything, and it was really nice. And, we got to go there and everybody got ready and, they took a couple kids filmed videos and stuff for like, so the school can post like
Yeah.
videos of and everything. And, that was pretty cool. Like watching them like do what they wanted to do. And like, some of them were hitting backflips and, some of them were just having like a bunch of fun doing that. And, it was really fun, especially having like the rest of the team just taking a couple pictures and stuff. Like, we got to sit there and just watch everybody like come up with all these funny poses and like do all this
Yeah.
fun stuff like everybody had to take a serious picture and then we got to do whatever we wanted. So it was really cool, especially with all the props we had, the pin belt and
Oh yeah.
some guys had their MIAA rings and they were wearing them and it was really sick just to see like everybody doing what they wanted to do with
Yeah.
themselves. Like everybody just let loose and not be serious for all the time. Like everybody just having
Exactly.
fun. And like, we were all messing with each other. Like, if some people were doing poses and stuff, they'd come off and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna one up you with that pose." And it was really fun. Like, and
Yeah.
nobody really took like each other's poses. Like they would all come up with new stuff, and it was
Oh
really
yeah.
cool.
I,
So
I,
that was something new for sure.
Love that. I need to see two things from you by the time you're a senior. I need to see an MIAA ring and at least one photo, and I also need to see a backflip from you. I need to see a video of you doing a backflip by the time you're a senior. So maybe that's something that I'm mostly just joking about the backflip, but obviously the MIAA ring would be cool. And if you ever did do a backflip, that would be pretty cool as well.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hoping for that MIAA ring and that backflip. One of the kids on the team has been trying to get me to learn one, so hopefully we get there. But as of right now, it's a little bit of a struggle.
Hey, you'll get there. It's obviously learning. It's about putting in time, obviously that. But I want to talk a little bit before we kind of like wrap up about like obviously how much you've changed as a wrestler, but that truly starts with getting your first win. And when you got your first win in the second tournament you had, how fun was it finally getting your hand raised, especially after coming off of your first tournament where you had a real possibility of getting a win, but you end up losing because of riding time.
Yeah, that was first tournament in the riding time. I completely forgot about the riding time rule, and I get a couple last second escape, and I'm like, you know what, we're going into overtime. I'm just gonna try and take this shot. I'm gonna try and get a takedown, and time expires, and I'm like. Some of the teammates even forgot about riding time, and they're like, "Hey, you're going in overtime. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. You got this, kid." And I look up and I see this like extra. It was like a minute, like 12 seconds or something on the bottom of the clock, and I was like, "Oh my god, no!" I was like,
Yeah.
"Dude, like this blows. Like this sucks." Like I
Yeah, like
completely
you're like,
forgot
I
about
have a
it.
chance. You're like, I have a chance. Just give me a chance in
Yeah,
extra
yeah.
time.
And I was like, I have a complete chance, and then I see that, and I was like, "Man, like this sucks." And it was a real like kind of reality check too, especially like, hey, like you can do it. Like you can get some cool stuff. Like you can get some cool wins.
Yeah.
Especially like that match, like that was like my first takedown too, like my first collegiate takedown and everything. So it was really fun. And going into that next tournament, we were in Wisconsin, and we were at the toughest tournament in the country for Division 3 that weekend, and it was really rough. So I was
Yeah.
like, man, like this tournament's gonna be tough. I might go 0-2. First match, it was rough. I wrestled like one of the top seeds, and got pretty beat up there, and dropped down to the prelim bracket, and I was like, man, I'm wrestling 2 matches, but I could be done right here. And
Yeah.
I go out, and this kid was pretty tall, and he actually ended up taking me down pretty quick right away. And I was like, man, he caught me with like a blast double out of nowhere, and
Okay.
I was like, man, and I got a reversal, and I was on top, just getting that riding time in, and and eventually, like at the end of the period, I finally seen something. I was like, hold on, and I like got him to his back, and I really thought I had him pinned, but just the positioning we were at, it was a really weird position. So I mean, I completely understand.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting a 4 count from it, so I'm up 6-3 at that point, and I'm like, wait, I actually have a shot. Like this is my time to go get that win. You know, I want to say I went bottom or top the next period, and got an escape, and then got another takedown. I actually used the danger position rule to get the takedown. I got in on a low single, came up, and kid was trying to scramble, and he actually put himself into a point where I was getting swipes, like they were swiping, and awarded the takedown, and then I actually ended up getting a couple. I think I got a 4 count again from there.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
awesome.
so it was really nice being that much. I was like, hey, like I'm in a comfortable spot right now. Like I can relax a little bit, and he ended up reversing me, and he went to go cradle me, and I just swam my arm out, and he went to go roll, and I posted it and ended up getting him on his back again to end the period. So, I was up by quite a bit, and I was like, hey, I could actually get a tech here. Like I could get the tech fall, and I want to say he chose top, or he might have chose neutral. I think he chose neutral, and he ended up
Okay.
taking me down, and I kind of looked up at the clock, and I was like, hey, I've got a lot of points. Like you know, I'm gonna have the riding time, because I already have 3 minutes of riding time locked up. Like
Yeah.
it, he can't get me under a minute. So I'm like, I'm gonna get another point. I'm gonna get the major decision. So I was like, you know what? I could really try and get another point here. Keep going, score some more points. And I really kept trying to get up, and I ended up not being able to get up. Getting that first win, getting my hand raised, it was really nice. Going out, and like all the guys kept asking me like, "Hey, how'd you do? How'd you do?" And I was like, "I won." And they were like, "Oh, let's go! You won your first one." They were all happy for me, and a couple of the seniors I talked to, like Blaze was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, good job on winning your first one." Was talking to me and everything. He's like, "I'm really proud of you," and it was
I
really
love
nice,
that.
especially when I got to text my mom finally. I went to go text my mom, and at the same time I was texting her, she was like, "Good job, you wrestled really good." Blah blah blah. She was like, "I'm really proud of you for getting that win."
That's
It
awesome.
really took that stress off my shoulders too, especially like not having to worry about going to more tournaments and being like, man, I haven't gotten a win yet, because
Yeah.
that's tough, especially going into like Christmas break, like not having a win and everything, because it's a little rough feeling. It feels like you're underachieving a little bit, but it was really nice
Exactly.
just to get that win. Especially in that heartbreaker week 1, like it was really nice to get that win eventually.
Yeah.
It's a really nice like confidence boost to show like you can actually like do some stuff. Like you're not going to be just a, rough year. Like you can have a little bit of a better year than you think you are.
Yeah, it's a confidence boost, but it's also at the same time you're seeing yourself get better. Like you're seeing where
Mhm.
you came from to where you currently are. And because of that, like how much have you changed as a wrestler? Like there's only like maybe like so much that you can change. Like like what you're good at, what you need to work at. Like have you changed too much as like a wrestler? Like just I don't want to say your style but like your approach and just how much have you improved since getting into Adrian? Just what are some things that like you're currently working on to try to continue to take that next step?
Some of the stuff I'm trying to work on right now is for sure, my top work, getting on top and like, right off the whistle, like being able to keep someone down instead of them getting up to their feet really quick and stuff. I'm for sure like trying to work on that, and it's been getting better. Especially once I can sink some stuff in and lock myself in a little bit of a couple places, especially like getting in on some leg riding and stuff. Getting locking that in because this it's a really rough position to get out of.
Yeah,
And especially for me being like, because I like really long arms, really long legs, it's a really good position for me to be in because I get a lot of leverage, so like I can get cross wrists and stuff pretty easily, and it's really nice like just to be able to take control of a limb and make it so they can't use it unless they want to fight it out.
yeah,
And getting to those positions more is really nice, and especially too, like my bottom work, I struggle a little bit on bottom, which most people do. It's
Yeah,
just a common thing, and I just been working to work on my bottom work a little bit, and just like be able to actually get some more stand ups and get out better. And honestly, really, some of the only thing I've been working on my feet is like really just kind of moving more, like getting it on shots and just like not just sitting there, like getting it on shots and like instantly trying to like move and like just keep moving so they really can't grab anything. So I'm just like keep moving and
yeah,
keep my pace and intensity up, especially like as a high schooler, like it's really different because you can sometimes just shoot in and you can just get in on a finish without really having to move a lot. So, having to just
exactly.
especially in high school too, like I was the kind of guy that like if you were spaz, I just wanted to slow you down and just keep everything slow. And
Yeah,
now in college, it's like, man, I kind of got to keep the intensity up, like look for more stuff. And it's really helped a lot too. Like they've showed me some stuff, and I can really see more stuff than what I
yeah,
actually saw before. So it was really nice just to get there and get all that done. So that's some of the stuff I've been working on, and obviously getting better finishes and everything,
yeah,
and working just more than my low single, getting to more head inside singles and head outside singles, and getting better in short offense position, front headlock, and honestly working on some throws too, especially so if I need to, late in the match, get a seven count
yeah.
and get a 7 point move. It'd be really nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And kind of like obviously learning those things, but kind of going back to what you did very well in high school was leg riding. And obviously that's a little bit more difficult to do in college because obviously you have better wrestlers, but just kind of like working on what you need to work on, what you need to get better, but also knowing what you do well is going to be really kind of important for growth as well for you in the future. But like for you, like at the end of this year, I know you have um basically 3.5 years left at Adrian. What do you hope to accomplish, or what do you hope to feel at the end of this year to know that, like, hey, I'm taking the right steps forward?
I honestly hope at the end of the year really to see myself from the beginning of the year just compared to the end of the year, like how much I've improved. Compare my first semester to my second semester. Only having like 2 wins in my first semester, and compared to like say my second semester, I have like 4, 5, 6. Like, even though it's a couple more wins compared to my first semester, it would look really nice for me, especially because it's like, hey, I'm improving, I'm getting there. Like next year
Yeah,
we're gonna take an even bigger step, and it's just something I really want to see, especially like like muscle gain and everything, how much stronger I've gotten compared to
yeah.
the beginning of my freshman year. So that'll those are two things I really want to see by like the end of the season. Compare it and see what I can improve on, especially throughout the year too.
Yeah, just kind of like those gradual improvements, but continue to see where you were at and where you are currently. And I do think you're obviously going to continue to get better. I do really hope you're able to achieve those goals. Hopefully, maybe we can have you back on in the future as well, talk a little bit about kind of those improvements. But I do want to end on kind of one last two-part question because I know you have practice to go to here shortly. It's been a long one. I did
Yeah.
so I apologize for taking as much time as I have. But the last kind of two-part question is: what's the greatest lesson you've learned from wrestling so far, and why should people give the sport a try, and especially for those people that are considering it but still a little bit nervous to join?
Yeah, probably the biggest lesson I've learned is honestly how hard I can work. Especially coming, from sports that you can work hard and you can
Yeah,
see improvement, or sometimes you can just be really really talented and not have to work hard at all. And in wrestling, like you can be talented, but you still have to work hard. Like you can't be talented
exactly.
and automatically be like, oh, I'm gonna be a state champ. Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna be a national champ. Like you still have to work really really hard, and it's a really nice thing to see, like how hard I was able to compare myself from my first year of wrestling to this year. Like I definitely think that I work really hard, and I I can it really helps myself like see like how hard I can work, and it's really nice.
yeah,
And something for people that have never wrestled before, like a reason you should try it is like, again, it can show you how hard you can work, how mentally tough you are too. Like it can show a lot. And it's really nice too because it kind of gives you like a little bit of like a martial arts kind of like it gives you a little bit of like it teaches you a little bit how to fight, but like not
Yeah,
really fight because it's not close fists. It's just kind of beating up each other without really actually beating up each other. You know,
exactly.
all the time. Like I'll leave practice all the time with black eyes, and it'll just be something like it's like, man, I just hit my head on something really hard, and I just got a black eye, or like hit my face on someone's knee, and it's whatever. Like it's something I feel like if you're scared about trying it, I think you just really just go in and just try it. Like it's a really nice thing to try. Like I was really scared when I first started wrestling, and I started to learn, and I got mentally tougher and physically like started getting better, and it makes me in a really good shape too
Yeah,
because it's a really physically demanding sport. So
exactly.
like it's not like not like, oh, I'm just gonna go out and run like a bunch of miles. Like, yeah, you got to run too, but you also got to like be able to wrestle. Like running shape and wrestling shape is completely different, and it's
Oh yeah,
it's a really nice thing. Like,
yeah,
to be able to have the energy and the physical abilities I have now thanks to wrestling. It's really something I feel if you want to try and wrestle, I think you should really go and just take the time to go wrestle even if the uniforms are weird or if some of the stuff that people do in wrestling is weird. It's not always like that. Like, some people kind of post stuff and make it seem like a really awkward sport, but it's just the jokes of it, and it's really fun.
yeah. Or you could turn out to be Bo Nickel and wrestle and do really well, and then go into
Exactly.
the UFC. Or you can also, for some wrestlers, I don't know necessarily your thoughts on this or if you've ever had it happen, but for some wrestlers, getting cauliflower ear and letting it harden is a badge of honor. I know that's not every single wrestler. I know that's kind of like an old-fashioned style thing, but I know that some wrestlers think that as well. Some people think it's little bit too far, but some people enjoy that part as well.
Yeah, I really think the cauliflower ear is a really cool
Yeah.
thing to have. I actually don't think I can get it though, because I've been kicked in
Okay.
the ear a couple of times and it has bruised up, but it actually hasn't, swelled up like actual cauliflower ear. So,
Okay.
I'm really bummed. Even though my girlfriend tells me if I get cauliflower ear, she's gonna kill me. But it's I think it's something really cool to have, and it just shows like, hey, like this guy wrestles. This guy's tough. So
Yeah.
I think cauliflower ear is a cool thing. Not everybody gets it though. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of guys just wear their headgear in practice just so they don't get it.
Yeah.
Just because they don't want it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cool thing, but some people think it's too far. But
Yeah.
you
I,
know,
I was just gonna say, if you're out in public and you're almost starting to fight with someone with a cauliflower ear, probably don't, because they're either a wrestler or a UFC or an MMA type guy, and it's probably not, or woman, it's probably not going to end very well for you at the most part.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah. But no, Cooper, I really appreciate you joining. We didn't necessarily know how long this episode would go, or how much you exactly were going to talk about, but turns out it's an hour and 13, hour and 10 minutes probably after editing. So
yeah,
really appreciate you joining. Really hope it was worth your time. Hopefully you had fun, and I'd love to have you back on in the future.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a really great thing to do, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that is a wrap to episode number 532. Thank you again to Cooper for joining, and tune in to the next episode.